A piece of literature I was given suggested that to laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To express feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas, your dreams before the crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken, because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, and is nothing. You may avoid suffering and sorrow if you don't risk, but you simply cannot learn, feel, change, grow, love, or live. Only a person who risks is free. What causes individuals to shy away from taking a risk, even if it is a low risk and will give them something they really want? Well, certainly high on most people's list would be the fear of loss, failure, and perceived humiliation if the loss were to occur. I think we should start by realizing that the good we realize when we step out and take a risk is only part of the gain. The real win is the confidence and experience we acquire, which translates into new opportunities for growth, enjoyment, and expansion in all areas of our life. When you think of the word risk, what comes to mind? You must understand that risk is not synonymous with gambling. Risk-taking is not gambling in any sense of the word. I have often said that the truly big winners in the world are the individuals who make decisions. They also take risks. But they do not view the decisions they have made as gambling. The big winners in life are truly focused on where they are headed and what they are doing, and typically they are involved in a really big idea. The big winners in life are confident. They never imagine that they'll fail. They are prepared to put everything into making it happen. Their energy, their time, their money, the list goes on and on. The average individual most certainly looks at their moves as enormous risks. Over the years, I have read, heard, and collected numerous human interest stories about extraordinary people. Stories that have inspired me to continue taking risks. Risks that have continued to set me free. Some time ago, Jerry Robert, the author of Conquering Life's Obstacles, shared a story with me that I shall never forget. I want to share that story with you. It's a true story about a great risk taker from Indiana in the United States of America. The man's name is Herman Krannert. Go back with me to the year 1925. This story begins in Indianapolis. Herman Krannert was an executive with the Sefton Container Company. He was summoned to Chicago to have lunch with the president of the company. He was very excited, and for good reason. He had never been invited to have lunch with the president before. Krannert met his president at the athletic club, and while they were having lunch, the president said, "Herman, I'm going to make an announcement in the company this afternoon that greatly impacts your life. We're going to promote you to Senior Executive Vice President, and you're going to be the newest member of the Board of Directors." Krannert was stunned. He said, "Mr. President, I had no idea I was even being considered for this. I want you to know that I'll be the most loyal employee this company has ever had. I'm going to dedicate my life to making this company the finest corporation in America." The president was gratified by this and said, "You know, Herman, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's one thing I'd like you to remember. As a member of the board of directors, you will vote exactly the way I tell you to vote." The president's command took the wind out of Herman Krannert's sails. He said he wasn't sure that he could do that. "Come on, Herman, that's the way it is in the business world. I'm putting you on the board of directors. You'll do what I tell you, right?" The more Herman thought about what the president had said, the angrier he became. At the end of the lunch, Herman Krannert stood up and said, "Mr. President, I want you to understand that I cannot accept this promotion. I will not be a puppet for anybody on a board of directors or anywhere else." Then he added, "Not only that, but I will not work for a company where such demands are made. I quit." He came back to Indianapolis that night, approached his wife, and said, "You'll be excited to know that today I was promoted to Executive Vice President. I was made a member of the board of directors, and I quit. She said, "You quit? Have you lost your mind?" But when he told her what happened, she was very supportive and said, "Well, I guess we'll have to find something else." 4 nights later, a knock came at his door. 6 senior executives from his company burst through the door, all excited. "Herman, we heard what happened the other day. We think that's the greatest thing we've ever heard. In fact, we quit too." "What do you mean, you quit too?" Herman said. "That's it, Herman. We quit too. And here's the good news. We're going to go to work for you." "How are you going to work for me? I don't even have a job." They replied, "Oh, we figure you'll find something, Herman, and when you do, we're going to work for you." That night, those 7 people sat down at Herman Cranert's dining room table and created the Inland Container Corporation, an organization which exists because one man in 1925 refused to compromise his core beliefs. Herman Cranert found himself in a position where he was forced to make a major decision. His choice was obvious: compromise his beliefs and live a lie, or risk everything. What would you have done? What do you believe? What are your core beliefs? You must recognize them, and you must live by them as Herman Cranert did, or you will never be free. You will be someone else's puppet. I'm going to tell you what I believe. I believe in God. I believe in an all-powerful, ever-present, all-knowing presence, which operates in a very exact manner, more commonly referred to by law. I believe this power will give me what I ask for every time and without exception. If I ask for the strength to walk where I have never been before, the strength will be there when I need it. If I need a creative idea to solve a problem, I will be inspired at the right moment. I believe in the law of opposites. If you can see a negative situation, you know there is a positive hidden somewhere within the situation, and if you seek, you will find. If risk is to expose oneself to a chance of loss, by law, you must also be exposing yourself to a win. However, you must keep in mind that the laws are exact and must be understood. The law of polarity, or as we previously referred to it, the law of opposite, does not merely state that everything has an opposite. It is equal and opposite. If the risk is small, the win will be as well. However, the size of the risk you take is not that important. What is important is that you absolutely refuse to play it safe. Taking small risks will lead to larger ones. Michelle, who does such a magnificent job singing on this cassette, put it best the other day when she pointed out that big trees grow from small seeds. How true that is. Risk-taking should be a subject taught in school, along with reading and mathematics, and it is a subject that could be taught. You can teach anyone anything. Unfortunately, very few people were taught anything constructive about risk-taking when they were children. When we were children, our little ears were constantly hearing, "Be careful, you might fall." What did they mean, might fall? We did fall. We're going to fall. Where the heck did they get this might stuff from? Think of how much better equipped we would be to face life's challenges and succeed regardless if we had repetitively heard, "Take a chance and don't worry about falling," because you're going to fall. Often, falling is an important part of learning. Many of the greatest lessons you will receive in life are going to come from falling, from your failures. Failing will never make you a failure unless you quit. Unfortunately, very few people heard that when they were small. The vast majority of our population have been mentally programmed to play it safe. In my seminars, I have often said that a little baby is a natural-born risk-taker. The baby never considers the consequences of falling when it is learning to walk. Falling is acknowledged as a natural consequence of learning to walk. It is not gambling. Everyone knows that the baby will fall, but that ultimately the baby will learn to walk. The baby, nor the baby's parents, never considered an option that the baby would not learn to speak or master a myriad of motor skills simply to avoid the stumbling the baby must endure. What happens to us? Why do we enter the world one way and for most people leave another? Why is it that we do not see the process of reaching our goals as having steps similar to the ones the baby must take in order to learn to walk? There will be some stumbling and falling in the learning process, but success can only be reached when we are prepared to take those steps, all of them, even the ones where we may fall down. You must constantly challenge yourself. When I was a youngster in school, I participated in track and field. Pole vaulting was my specialty. It was the one event I seemed to do much better at than others. I clearly remember I knocked that crossbar flying more often than I cleared it. I also remember I was not a very enthusiastic kid when that happened. I suppose knocking the bar off left me with a feeling that I had failed, and as I remember, no one advised me of anything different. Reflecting on those days, I can clearly see those times would have been a tremendous opportunity for the teachers to help me understand one of life's greatest lessons. But it never happened. It would be for many years before I learned the truth, the hard way. Reaching the goal is not success. Success is moving toward the goal. When I was knocking down the crossbar, I was attempting to reach the goal. I was stretching, giving everything I had. That could hardly be considered failing. Every time I tried to clear that bar, I was risking the ridicule of the other kids. I risked having them laugh at me when I missed, and they did laugh. They sure did. Every time I ran down the field, lowering the pole into the box, trying to vault myself over the bar, I was challenging myself. Taking risks is essential when you want to reach a goal, and the purpose of goals is growth. When you challenge yourself, you are bringing more of yourself to the surface. If you knock the bar flying today, at least you will know you're challenging yourself. You're a success. Intellectually, you know different. But it is not your intellectual mind that's controlling your behavior. That is determining the results you receive in life. Your behavior and your results are the expression of your conditioned subconscious mind. That part of your personality which is housing the ridiculous play it safe information, which has been passed along from one generation to the next for too long. 90-some% of us are the product of someone else's way of thinking. Make a decision right now to change. Decide this very moment there will be no more playing it safe, just freedom from now on. No more saving it for a rainy day type of thinking in your life. When people get caught up in the habit of saving for a rainy day, that's generally what they get, a rainy day. Let it go. Take a risk. Open the doors of your mind and step out where the sun shines. Make magic. No more rainy days. You may get some liquid sunshine, but no more rainy days. If you dream of living your life in a really big way, you must accept risk-taking as a very real part of the apprenticeship that you must serve. Have you sat back lately, completely relaxed, mentally played with the idea of what you plan to do with the rest of your life? If you haven't, it's a great exercise. This is a fascinating world, and you have what would appear to be almost magical powers locked up within you. You can actually call your own shots, do your own bidding. In truth, there is nothing holding you back. I clearly remember the first time I heard a motivational recording by the late Earl Nightingale. His words lit a fire inside of me, which grows brighter every day. Earl told a story about a farmer who was out walking in a field. He looked down and saw a tiny pumpkin growing on a vine. Nearby, he spotted a small glass jar. The farmer reached down and placed the tiny pumpkin inside of the small jar. The pumpkin continued to grow until it filled the inside of the jar, beyond which it could not grow. There are a number of people like that tiny pumpkin. They limit themselves. They refuse to take a risk. They never truly test the strength of their abilities. One of my favorite authors is Gurdjieff. He wrote, "The first reason for man's inner slavery is his ignorance, and above all his ignorance of himself." Without self-knowledge, without understanding the workings and function of his machine, man cannot be free. He cannot govern himself. He will always remain a slave, the plaything of forces acting upon him. This is why in all ancient teachings, the first demand at the beginning of the way to liberation was to know thyself. Know thyself is liberating advice. There's just absolutely no question about it. Imagine that you have been dealt 5 cards in a card game. The cards are lying on the table in front of you, but you don't know what cards you're playing with before you pick them up and look at the other side to see what you've been dealt. Life is much like a game of cards. It's not until you look at the other side of yourself, the inside, that you know what you have to work with. Know thyself. Here's a marvelous piece of literature on risk and resistance, which was written by the late William Penpatrick. Listen real close as I share this with you, because I've grown to love it. No person, idea, or institution becomes great until great resistance has been encountered. Greatness cannot be achieved until this concept is understood. Unfortunately, the average person is ignorant of this rule to achievement. Mr. and Miss Average, in their ignorance, is fearful and reluctant to take risks, to encounter even the slightest resistance. They don't want to make waves or be criticized, and they incorrectly feel that criticism will hold them back and prevent their happiness from being realized. In truth, the opposite is the case. Take note, when we begin to take real risks, we are first given resistance by our loved ones, for they fear change because change means facing the unknown. When we begin to make rapid achievement or commitment to rapid progress, we have roadblocks thrown up by our friends and relatives. They begin to resist by negative comments and actions, which are devices to cause you to maintain the status quo. Don't risk, be sure, play it safe. That's what they're asking you to do. If you're to achieve great progress, you must take risks, and you must prevail against those closest to you. This is difficult and requires courage because you desire to please and not hurt those you love. The truth is that great harm befalls your loved ones when you fail to be yourself and do your thing. This is so because you lose your enthusiasm for life. Your growth process stops and your self-esteem diminishes. Those negatives are reversed when you stand your ground, when you take the risks, and when you have prevailed, your loved ones gain a new and a higher respect for you. History records countless events which prove the point. We are fortunate to have such great resistance. This resistance is evidence of our greatness, and it provides us with the energy to risk, prevail, to conquer, and to dominate. These next few short years will record a brilliant history and establish a permanent place for our way of life, which is freedom to be and to work out dreams for a great world, for ourselves, for our children, and for all of humankind. Understand our battle and be glorified that you are a part of the making of history. The work you do today can provide new freedom and hope for millions yet to come. Take a moment and mentally thank the memory of William Penpatrick for those beautiful words of wisdom. Thousands of men and women have been inspired to keep on keeping on from what he shared with us. By reviewing those words frequently until they become resident in your subconscious mind, you'll be inspired as well. I want to suggest that you think of where you are in life, the success you are enjoying. Think of what it took you to get where you are. Whatever it took to get you to the point you're at will not be sufficient to keep you there. No one ever arrives. The risks and resistance never ends if you are going to improve your position. And you're either improving your position or you're sliding backwards. How often have you watched successful people fall from grace after reaching the pinnacle of their selected career? You need to keep pursuing, keep on doing, and looking for new and better ways to grow, to change, to expand beyond the position that you've reached. You just must keep taking risks. I'm not speaking here of change for change's sake, but rather for the sake of growth. It matters not how much we change, provided we are changing, risking, improving, and growing. To continue with positive and dynamic motion in our personal or family and business lives, we need a track to run on. We need to ask ourselves deep, penetrating questions frequently as a constant checkup. Answering these questions honestly will make you aware that your life can make a difference, a big difference. You have the talent and ability, along with an infinite source of potential, to develop yourself into something great, to do work that really counts. The real key to living a fulfilled life lies in doing great work. However, great work is always preceded by many risks. George Bernard Shaw said, "This is the true joy of life. Being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, and being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy." Shaw's quote should be posted in every workplace, home, and school. I clearly remember a talk I heard many years ago in Chicago when I worked with the late Earl Nightingale. Earl was speaking at a meeting that we were conducting. He said that we were quickly reaching a point where we almost deified leisure time. He went on to say that he felt that was rather sad because all of our real pleasure comes from our labor, not our leisure. Work's made for us. We're not made for work. Think, really think. Your greatest feeling of satisfaction is always following some great risk. Make up your mind today to do work that counts. Step out of your comfort zone. Do it right now. The particular risk you are contemplating may cause fear. You may be scared. Clearly understand there's nothing wrong with being scared. Everyone is full of fear from time to time. However, we must never permit being scared to stop us. Often we find people who are scared of the dark. Some people are scared of meeting strangers. That may sound silly, and in truth, being scared is silly. But nevertheless, fear is real. Its cause is ignorance. Today, there are thousands of people who are scared of losing their jobs or their business. What should we do when we're scared? Well, I picked up some great advice from a magazine I subscribe to each month. Do it scared. That's right, do it scared. Refuse to permit this negative demon to control you, your emotions, or your actions. Eleanor Roosevelt put it well. She said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear right in the face. By following her advice, you will liberate yourself from this crippling emotional state that being scared causes." Burn this idea deep in your marvelous mind. You can accomplish whatever you can visualize. If you're a parent, make certain that you inundate the little mind in your care with this concept. When they are grown, they will thank you 1,000,000 times, and their children will as well. While we are thinking about children, let's throw up a caution flag. There is a 4-letter word that most parents use around their children so frequently that the children pick it up, and before too long it's buried in the treasury of their subconscious mind. The 4-letter word is can't. This word has done more damage than all the other frowned upon 4-letter words put together. Can't is a word that paralyzes any constructive progress. It switches your mind into a negative frequency. It is a 4-letter word that will open your mind to an ever-ending flow of logical, practical reasons, which will enable you to justify why you are not able to do something you sincerely want to accomplish. The only alternative to that 4-letter word is its polar opposite, I can. I can is far more important than IQ. You don't necessarily have to be very smart to win, but you must be willing. To assist you in preparing for a life of risk and adventure, permit me to summarize 20 key points. 1. Risk must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. 2. You may avoid suffering and sorrow if you don't risk, but you simply cannot learn, feel, change, grow, love, or live. 3. Only a person who risks is free. 4. Understand that risk is not synonymous with gambling. 5. What are your core beliefs? You must recognize them and you must live by them. 6. If risk is to expose oneself to a chance of loss, by law you must also be exposing yourself to a win. 7. Big trees grow from small seeds. 8. Failing will never make you a failure unless you quit. 9. Reaching the goal is not success. Success is moving toward the goal. 10. When people get caught up in the habit of saving for a rainy day, that is generally what they get, a rainy day. 11. Gurdjieff said, the first reason for man's inner slavery is his ignorance, and above all, his ignorance of himself. 12. No person, idea, or institution becomes great until great resistance has been encountered. 13. When we begin to take real risks, we are first given resistance by our loved ones. 14. When you take the risks, and when you have prevailed, your loved ones gain a new and a higher respect for you. 15. Whatever it took to get you to the point you're at will not be sufficient to keep you there. 16. George Bernard Shaw said, this is the true joy of life, being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one. 17. And Earl Nightingale said, we are quickly reaching a point where we almost deify leisure time. He went on to say that was rather sad because all of our pleasure comes from our labor, not our leisure. 18. Burn this idea deep in your marvelous mind. You can accomplish whatever you can visualize. 19. Can't is a word that paralyzes any constructive progress. Replace it with its polar opposite, I can, which is more important than IQ. And 20. And last, but certainly not least, the beautiful truth which was given to us by Helen Keller. Security is a myth. If life is not a series of risks, then it is nothing.